Reports have surfaced online raising suspicions surrounding the deaths of D'Angelo and Angie Stone. Observers have noted that D'Angelo passed away the same year as his former partner, Angie Stone, who died in March, while D'Angelo passed in October. Kanye West has been vocal about what he describes as secretive clauses in industry contracts that allegedly forbid mentioning the names Christ or Jesus. According to West, these agreements restrict artists from expressing faith openly, and he continues to expose these details publicly. Commentators have revisited West's earlier statements, noting that he has consistently spoken against what he believes are manipulative systems within the entertainment world. He has warned about powerful industry forces, what some online users refer to as the Illumin, that silence artists who speak up. West's critics often label him unstable, but his supporters argue that his claims align with patterns seen in past controversies involving major figures. In the wake of D'Angelo's death, analysts and fans have begun re-evaluating his long hiatus from music. His career, which went dormant for over a decade between Voodoo and Black Messiah, was marked by personal challenges and what sources describe as shady industry forces. Reports suggest that D'Angelo's former manager arranged a secret deal with executive Clive Davis, aiming to keep Angie Stone and D'Angelo from sharing the same label. Under that deal, if D'Angelo joined, Angie would be removed. West has previously spoken about rituals, humiliation, and so-called sacrifices said to take place behind closed doors in the music world. He has hinted that certain powerful individuals, including Davis, whose full name some avoid mentioning publicly, hold influence capable of triggering censorship online. As D'Angelo's legacy continues to be discussed, fans also question the whereabouts of Jaguar Wright, another artist known for exposing alleged music industry misconduct, whose silence in recent months has fueled further speculation. Sources close to the late musician D'Angelo have reignited speculation surrounding his struggles in the music industry and the circumstances of his death. Some believe the industry sabotaged the artist for refusing to conform to its unwritten rules. The story has taken a darker turn as observers point to the actions of his former partner, Angie Stone, who began publicly exposing alleged corruption within the business and even named names shortly before her death earlier this year in a car crash that many found suspicious. Before her passing, Stone questioned where her royalties had gone after decades in the business. In her own words, she said that after 40 years, she was still asking, "Where are my royalties going? Because I'm not getting this." She revealed that Universal Music had been receiving her royalties instead, raising questions about financial transparency within the industry. D'Angelo, who burst onto the scene in the mid-1990s with Brown Sugar, transformed the sound of modern R&B by reviving the soul of the 1970s and blending it with contemporary grooves. His influence reshaped music forever. Critics and fans agreed he was not just another singer, but a generational voice. Then came Voodoo in 2000, a landmark album that captured the essence of his genius and left listeners obsessed. By that point, it was clear that D'Angelo was among the most gifted musicians of his generation. What made his artistry stand out even more was that he did everything on his own terms. He played most of the instruments himself, poured emotion into every note, and refused to release the formulaic hits executives demanded. That artistic independence, however, placed him in direct conflict with an industry that rewards compliance over creativity. As one commentator explained, some people wanted to place him on a pedestal and treat him as a spokesperson for an entire generation, particularly for Black artists. But D'Angelo's rise to fame brought enormous pressure, forcing him to navigate a new life of celebrity, scrutiny, and expectations. That shift alone was a paradigm change few could handle. Industry insiders have long said that authenticity rarely pays in the mainstream. Executives often seek control, favoring artists who embrace flashy lifestyles, provocative imagery, and carefully managed personas. D'Angelo resisted all of that. Deeply religious and spiritually grounded, he wanted his music to reflect faith and truth rather than manufactured glamour. That refusal to conform is said to have sparked tension behind the scenes. Whispers within the music world suggest that powerful figures, including well-known moguls, enforced a system of silence. Commentators have pointed out moments when names and faces were blurred out of interviews, sparking questions about influence and intimidation. They ask how someone could be so powerful that even mentioning their name on social platforms could trigger removal. Such secrecy, critics claim, reflects the deeper control these individuals wield off-camera. Observers also referenced Sean Diddy Combs, noting that while his behavior has drawn attention, some insist he inherited rather than invented the culture of manipulation that pervades the industry. Reports allege that those same insiders host exclusive parties, forge deals, and pressure rising artists to join elite circles under unspoken terms. In D'Angelo's case, sources suggest that he was invited into those circles but refused to participate. His defiance, they say, cost him career momentum and created powerful enemies. Even Angie Stone hinted at these pressures during one of her last interviews. Speaking cautiously, she admitted that years after her breakup with D'Angelo, she learned unsettling information about what he had faced behind closed doors. Stone described D'Angelo as both a friend and a man battling extraordinary challenges. She revealed that she had recently been told shocking details by a credible source about the darker side of the industry. Though she didn't provide names, she warned that the devil don't play fair. Her statement intensified speculation that she knew too much and had become a target for exposing hidden truths. Commentators claim that Stone's revelations were not welcomed by those she criticized. They said she knew too much, one insider noted. She knew what they were trying to do with D'Angelo. Allegations surfaced that she had been silenced for speaking out about financial exploitation and coercion within the business. Meanwhile, Diddy's name resurfaced in discussions about predatory behavior, with reports describing him as someone known for hosting parties that crossed professional boundaries. Commentators claim that artists were often pressured to attend or participate, and D'Angelo's refusal may have alienated him further. As one observer put it, Diddy wanted to party, and you had to tell him no. Though this is not meant to retell Angie Stone's life story, it exposes the broader pattern of fear, control, and secrecy that continues to haunt the entertainment world. Both D'Angelo and Angie Stone, through their art and integrity, challenged a system that demanded obedience. Their resistance, some believe, cost them more than fame. It cost them peace, opportunity, and perhaps even safety. Reports continue to surface about the darker side of the music world as new perspectives emerge on D'Angelo's career and the mysterious parallels between his life and the death of Angie Stone. While it remains uncertain whether D'Angelo was ever pulled into the exploitative circles of the industry or whether he managed to resist them, insiders agree that his time within that environment changed him forever. During the height of his fame, fans remember the iconic video in which D'Angelo appeared shirtless, a moment that became one of the defining images of his career. Yet, according to industry whispers, the attention he received was not limited to female admirers. Allegations surfaced, suggesting that even powerful male figures in the industry, including Diddy, had inappropriate interests in the singer. Some commentators describe these behaviors as manipulative attempts to draw artists into deeper circles of control. D'Angelo's peers have compared such behavior to the same pattern seen across the careers of other artists, such as 50 Cent, who also faced internal pressures and public scrutiny. Observers note that D'Angelo's life began to spiral during this period. He struggled with substance use, visible weight gain, and several arrests that became tabloid headlines. What many failed to recognize was that his decline reflected more than personal issues. It was part of a systemic cycle. Insiders claim that record executives lured artists into compromising situations, using fame as leverage. High-profile collaborations and exclusive parties, including those allegedly hosted by Diddy, became environments where control replaced creativity. This form of coercion is what many describe as the modern version of industry sacrifice. Physical harm was no longer necessary. Humiliation, exhaustion, and financial control could achieve the same purpose. Artists who refused to comply were quietly pushed out, stripped of their visibility, and turned into cautionary examples. For years, Kanye West has warned about these very practices, repeatedly speaking about hidden rituals, punishments, and mechanisms of control aimed at silencing dissenting voices. His statements about the treatment of outspoken musicians have gained renewed attention in light of these events. D'Angelo entered the industry as a revolutionary figure, one whose musicality and individuality redefined soul music. But by the end of his public career, he appeared withdrawn, reluctant to participate in an environment that had once celebrated him. Analysts observing his career note that his silence reflected deep disillusionment, suggesting something behind the scenes had permanently changed his outlook. The situation becomes even more unsettling when viewed alongside the experiences of Angie Stone. After decades of performing, Stone began publicly criticizing the same industry that had shaped her career. In her final interviews, she named entities she claimed had withheld her rightful earnings, pointing directly at Universal Music Group. Speaking candidly, she questioned, "After 40-something years in the business, why are my royalties missing?" Stone alleged that Universal had been receiving all her royalties, including mechanical payments, for years without her consent. She accused the corporation of taking funds meant for her and other artists, describing it as systematic exploitation. "UMG has taken all the sisters' money," she said, emphasizing that the problem extended beyond her alone. According to her statements, the company had absorbed significant portions of artists' income and ignored accountability even amid class action lawsuits. She further explained that those working on her behalf failed to register her songs properly, allowing profits to disappear into corporate systems. In her words, she was a walking testimony of survival, saying that only faith had carried her through decades of theft and injustice. Stone lamented that the money she had earned could have allowed her to retire 20 years earlier, yet she continued to work while those in power profited. Her determination to expose these practices seemed unwavering. However, only months after voicing these accusations, she died suddenly in a car accident that many fans and observers found suspicious. Angie Stone's death came just 7 months before D'Angelo's own passing, a sequence of events that deepened speculation about what truly occurred behind closed doors. When D'Angelo's struggles are viewed in connection with Stone's warnings and untimely death, a chilling pattern begins to emerge. Both artists resisted manipulation, both faced isolation, and both ultimately suffered consequences that remain unexplained. The music industry, often celebrated for its glamour, continues to conceal stories of exploitation and silence that challenge its image. Analysts examining the careers of major black musicians argue that the entertainment industry has long exploited artists, pushing them to compromise their values in exchange for fame and compliance. Commentators describe this exploitation as visible yet ignored, a cycle happening right in front of everyone. When artists resist control, insiders claim, their careers are often derailed, blacklisted, or abruptly ended. Among those cited in this discussion is D'Angelo, whose devotion to his faith shaped both his artistry and identity. Deeply religious, he sought to use his music to express spiritual truths rather than satisfy industry expectations. During a past interview, a journalist recalled first hearing D'Angelo's sound and thinking it could have come straight from a Pentecostal church, highlighting how strongly his musical roots were tied to gospel tradition. D'Angelo affirmed that his spirituality influenced every aspect of his work. "It totally informs everything I do," he once said, explaining that before each performance, he and his band, the Vanguard, would pray together. He described how they began every show with an old spiritual song from way back in the woods, using music as a bridge to connect with divine strength before stepping on stage. To him, that faith-based authority was untouchable, something he carried proudly before every audience. Those close to D'Angelo note that this commitment to faith clashed with the industry's priorities. Executives wanted hits, image, and sexualized appeal, not songs about Jesus or moral conviction. While D'Angelo remained loyal to his beliefs, those pressures became relentless. Colleagues recall the frenzy around his live performances, where female fans would grab at his shirt so aggressively that his team cut slits in the fabric to prevent him from choking. Industry observers point out that most artists in such positions succumb to temptation, but D'Angelo resisted. Commentators compared his self-restraint to a biblical test of purity, choosing morality over indulgence. Kanye West, who has often spoken about spiritual warfare within entertainment, once claimed that many performers have that lust demon that keeps them trapped in cycles of sin and manipulation. In contrast, D'Angelo was described as someone who ran from lust, valuing his faith more than fame. However, the same integrity that protected his spirit may have jeopardized his career. Reports allege that the singer was pressured to sign contracts forbidding references to Jesus or religious themes. West himself has claimed that modern recording contracts explicitly restrict artists from invoking Christ, describing it as a symbolic act of selling one's soul. He suggested that these agreements serve to suppress spirituality and reinforce corporate control. Multiple sources have echoed similar concerns, alleging that some major labels, including Rock Nation, include clauses that discourage or outright ban religious expression in lyrics. West recounted how, during one recording session, several people entered his studio simply to shout the name Jesus in defiance of such restrictions. "You can say Jesus in your studio," he insisted, framing it as an act of rebellion against spiritual censorship. Industry insiders say such control mechanisms are designed to distance artists from faith-based messages, ensuring their output aligns with commercial agendas rather than personal conviction. For D'Angelo, that meant navigating constant tension between his calling as a spiritual artist and the demands of an industry that rewarded provocation over purity. Observers claim that while D'Angelo's talent was unmatched, his refusal to conform left him isolated. He was not the kind of star who thrived on excess or lust. Instead, he was the performer who prayed before shows and brought gospel to R&B stages. Those who knew him say he believed divine power accompanied him to every concert, shaping his confidence and creativity. As discussions around faith, censorship, and control continue to circulate, D'Angelo's story remains a symbolic example of what happens when an artist's convictions clash with a profit-driven system. The same structures that build careers can dismantle them when moral independence threatens the established order. In the broader debate, these revelations have reignited questions about how the music business defines freedom, creativity, and faith. For artists like D'Angelo, spiritual truth was never negotiable, even when it came at the cost of commercial success. And as figures like Kanye West continue to speak out about religious suppression in contracts, the conversation surrounding artistic integrity and divine expression has taken on new urgency across the entertainment world. Analysts examining the late D'Angelo's career continue to uncover what many describe as the hidden mechanics of the music industry, a system of influence, control, and symbolic sacrifice. Observers note that when people hear the word Illuminati in connection with music, they often imagine secret societies and literal rituals. But insiders clarify that the term is more often used as a metaphor for the invisible power structure that governs the industry. This network of executives, managers, and corporate hierarchies dictates what artists can say, how they should appear, and even what subjects they are allowed to sing about. Within this system, D'Angelo's journey stands as a clear example of resistance and consequence. Those close to the artist recall how he faced high-pressure environments, exclusive parties, private meetings, and binding contracts demanding obedience. These, they say, were part of the industry's quiet rituals of compliance. The cost of refusal was steep: isolation, humiliation, and professional derailment. D'Angelo, known for his depth and integrity, spent decades defying those demands. But the result, many believe, was blackballing, a long hiatus, public misinterpretation, and constant scrutiny. When viewed alongside Angie Stone's warnings before her death and Kanye West's persistent claims about industry rituals, the picture becomes darker. Experts argue that the modern entertainment industry does not require physical sacrifice. Instead, it demands symbolic ones: the surrender of creative freedom, mental peace, and career progression. Those who resist often find themselves excluded from opportunity. Despite such obstacles, D'Angelo's artistic legacy endures. His music, from Brown Sugar to Black Messiah, continues to inspire listeners worldwide. One fan's post on X captured his journey perfectly. D'Angelo dropped Brown Sugar, then had writer's block for years. Then came Voodoo, then years of struggle, and finally Black Messiah. His life proves that the most beautiful creations can still emerge from hardship. Commentators have described D'Angelo's story as a moral parable within modern entertainment, a testament to spiritual endurance. They emphasize that the singer's resistance came from being chosen, a term often used to describe individuals who remain unmoved by greed. Industry veterans explain that when executives identify such people, they test their loyalty with offers of enormous wealth. They'll say, "We can give you 50 million, one analyst noted, but the chosen ones walk away. Such individuals, they argue, refuse to be controlled because contentment makes them unpredictable. This defiance, however, comes at a cost. The same system that rewards submission punishes independence. Commentators describe it as a warning to future artists. Talent alone is not enough to survive in an industry built on compliance. Standing your ground may mean losing access to the machinery that sustains fame. The consequences might not appear immediately, but can unfold over years or decades. Industry critics, drawing from examples like D'Angelo's, warn that even the most talented, spiritual, and uncompromising artists often pay a heavy price for integrity. The lessons are clear. The entertainment world prizes obedience as much as talent. Those who question its rules risk erasure. Former athletes and cultural commentators have also drawn parallels to similar power dynamics in sports. Ex-NBA player Kwame Brown has referred to this mindset as the go-along-to-get-along culture, a system that rewards silence and punishes dissent. Analysts say this principle extends far beyond athletics, influencing the entertainment world as well. It favors people who never ask questions, who follow directions without hesitation, and who keep the machinery running smoothly for those at the top. Critics argue that this silence allows abuse of power to continue unchecked. The elites want people who don't question anything, one observer stated. That's how they maintain control. In the case of D'Angelo, his refusal to conform marked him as different, and for many, that difference became both his power and his downfall. Kanye West's ongoing campaign against these hidden systems has kept the discussion alive. He has repeatedly alternated between outbursts of revelation and periods of silence, leading many to interpret his actions as both testimony and struggle. Each time he re-emerges, the debate reignites. Is the music industry truly suppressing spiritual and creative independence? Or are these claims symbolic of deeper cultural tensions? Whatever the answer, the pattern remains striking. D'Angelo's resilience, Stone's final revelations, and West's warnings collectively paint a portrait of an industry that tests the limits of faith, morality, and individuality. It is a world where loyalty to one's soul may cost everything, yet still stand as the ultimate victory.